Hello, so this is diversity and inclusion, how to have bold, inclusive conversations in the workplace. Diversity and inclusion is a key issue for HR professionals, but rather than viewing it as a tick box exercise, we need to learn to live these values day to day and not shy away from challenging conversations. Traditionally, conversations about race, religion, or politics have been taboo in the workplace. In 2017, companies were finding that they need to respond to what was going on outside the walls of their organization, but didn't know how to discuss these taboo topics. Engaging in these conversations is important because it impacts engagement, productivity, and retention. The model for bold and inclusive conversation provides a blueprint for developing the skills to prepare for, facilitate, and engage in cross-cultural dialogue about polarizing topics. The prerequisite to engage in bold, inclusive conversations include fostering self and other understanding by examining our own culture, biases, and worldviews, assessing organizational and individual readiness by gauging factors like trust and exposure to difference, preparing for the conversation by understanding the who, what, where, and why of the dialogue, practicing behaviors that support finding common ground, and continuing to practice inclusive habits that support cross-cultural effectiveness. Another core aspect of the model is the emphasis on reflection and ongoing learning, something that is often overlooked in our attempt at dialogue, especially about polarizing topics. Without these necessary skills, you will not be able to get in the deep conversation where shifts in worldview are possible. Executive officers, employees, and educators alike have all begun to use this model to increase their knowledge and capacity for engaging in and creating brave spaces for bold, inclusive conversations. Organizations are beginning to embrace the idea of employees bringing their whole selves to work because it enhances engagement and innovation. 8 conditions for engaging in challenging conversations. Too many of us minimize the challenges in engaging in these conversations. We think that all that is required is positive intent, but it takes much more than good intentions. So I offer 8 important conditions, including commitment, cultural competence, brave and psychologically safe spaces, understanding equity and power, ability to face fear and fragility, grace and forgiveness, trust, and belonging and inclusion. The purpose is not to gain cross-cultural understanding with one conversation, but instead practice having these conversations as if they were any other skill until inclusive behavior becomes nature. My challenge to you all is to set your mind towards actualization and make inclusivity your everyday reality, whether it be in the workplace or in community. It's about committing to knowing, getting, and doing better than we did yesterday. Keeping in mind that our commitment to live inclusively is a journey, not a destination. Commitment. Inclusion will not happen without our collective commitment to eradicate persisting inequalities. Anything we are committed to take time and effort. Cultural competence. There are specific skills and abilities that are required for inclusive conversations. Cultural competence can be defined as a continuous learning process to gain knowledge, skills, and understanding to discern cultural differences in our own and other cultures. Brave and psychologically safe spaces. I recommend that we create brave spaces so that people feel safe in conversations. Understanding equity and power. Equity is the treatment of people according to what they deserve, with an underlying assumption that some groups may have historically been denied what they deserve due to entrenched system of inequality. Inclusive conversations must consider equality and power dynamics. Ability to face fear and fragility. We are afraid of talking about diversity and inclusive topics because we might get it wrong, and we will not be forgiven. Fear can lead to the more serious manifestation of trauma. Acknowledging and understanding our fears is an all-important step in engaging in inclusive conversations. Unless we are willing to grace and forgiveness, unless we are willing to forgive at the individual, interpersonal, and systems level for wrongs that have been endured, inclusive conversations will get little traction. Forgiveness does not mean that we forget the transgression. Grace is related to forgiveness. It is unearned consideration. Trust. Building trust across different dimensions of diversity is complex. Contributing to the lack of trust for historically subordinate groups is a history of inhumane treatment. Belonging and inclusion. Belonging has been described as workers feeling secure, supported, accepted, and included. Inclusion and belonging go hand in hand. Inclusion is the intersection of belonging and where a person feels appreciated for their uniqueness. So that's it for this video. Thank you for listening.